Rahubat, I'm doing a drive-through. See what's up. See who's out there. Come on now. What's going on? Just playing. I'm just, it's Saturday night, and I didn't go out tonight, but I am gonna start going out to clubs and different events that I need to go and do some PR work, what they call public relations work. You know what I'm saying? I am still in the music business. I enjoy the music business. And so sometimes you have to invest time to go out, to the clubs out here, the jazz clubs and stuff like that. Let me see what I got going on here. What's going on? Who want to talk? Who wants to get out here? Get on. Not many people. I don't know. But anyway, what I wanted to do here is lay out the keynotes to a discussion. Now, I went online today. I checked out a couple of podcasts and discussions that we have. You know what I'm saying? And I ran into one about the flat Earth and about global warming, and also about the Metaverse. And the way they were speaking to me sounds a little religious. You know what I'm saying? Like the religious-minded people are like, oh, this technology and this and this and that. We should be natural, and God is not intended as things of the devil. It's gonna put us in hell, and talk like that. And that's again, this perspective. You know what I'm saying? They're using biblical perspective to kind of analyze. Maybe some of them didn't even notice they're doing this. You know what I'm saying? But it's embedded in them. You know what I'm saying? So I tell you, critical thinking as what the norm educational system has taught us about. A lot about critical thinking. Very rarely you go into inductive reasoning, deduction reasoning. They will introduce you to that. But then sometimes it depends on the person teaching, and if they introduce paradoxical thinking, which is a different way of reasoning things out. You know what I'm saying? Things that exist paradoxically. It's not right or wrong. It's not this or that. It's just simply the point that's being made. I use the analogy a lot of times when you have two people. One person tells another person, I got up and I saw the sunrise. One person asked, but what did you do this morning? Well, I got up and I saw the sunrise. He says, you didn't see no sunrise. What do you think I did? I saw the sunrise. He says, the sun doesn't rise. You know what I'm saying? Per se. It's just how the earth rotates and the positioning of the sun and earth rotating that it appears to be rising, but it's not rising, right? And I'm like, that's another perspective, but it's weird. And I'm like, paradoxically, when you look at it, the earth does appear to rise. You see it with your eyes. Like the sky appears blue. Oh, the sky ain't blue. It's clear. It's just the nitrogen. It's just reflecting. The nitrogen is reflecting that blue light. That's the fast frequencies coming at you, to your optic. So they give you the scientific, perspective stuff, which is okay, But you cannot negate the fact that people have physical senses and they see with their optic sense, one of the physical sense of seeing, right? And that feeds the information to their common sense. And then that's when they make the statement that the sun rises or the sky is blue. You can't fault them for that. That's their perspective. We all carry different lenses, right? Now, if you're going to go into a scientific type of speech, vernacular, then you're going to speak differently. You're going to bring out certain points there. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of perspective and both existing. I walk around, I do see the sky blue. That's my physical sense. But then when I start using ideas and concepts, which is another sense, the sense of intuition, the sense of psychometry, the sense of clairvoyance, and the sense of telepathy and teleportation, right? Telepathy. These senses are what you call higher senses, and it can reach the common sense. It's in common in each one of us, right? And so you can't fault anybody for that. You just can't. You just got to know where you at and who you speaking with and what type of conversation. But if you're going to always enter into conversations and groups of people having a conversation, always going to interject something that may not be at their level, or they're not be in there. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to inject and you create this sort of like imbalance in environment. Happens. Everyone could be having a good time, and there's always that one person walks in, they just blew it. Even on a podcast, oh man, are you serious? On the chat, you still thinking like that? And so I don't negate or fault anybody religious, because I come from that religious school. Let me tell you, it's a school of thought. Religion is binding you back into certain morals and ethics and principles and ideas and concepts, and coming from that particular perspective. And so I learned that as I'm walking that path, I grab my jewels, right? And I walk with my jewels, but at the same, I learn. And I'm not disgruntled at my past. You see, I spoke about that, how there's certain people that are disgruntled about their past life, of the schools they went through, or persons that they study under. And that's crazy. That's crazy. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so they were having this discussion about global warming and the metaverse. So I'm just going to touch upon right now. I might hit upon the metaverse. Right here we have solar culture. Ancient accounts of super ultra scientific advanced civilization. And ancient Tamaraean Taseti Hatba Ka Ta Hut Ka Ta and Hut Ba Ta were different sections. Those are ancient names and tones, yo. And then, of course, at another time it was known as Ta Seti. And then another time it was known as Tamare. And then Kemet. And then Egypt, So we're speaking about an era pre-dynastic when it was Hut, Ka, Ta, from the Tahites, Hut, Ka, Pa, Ta, and Hut, Ba, Ta. One is the spirit, character, personality, the upper section, and the lower section, which is the Ba, the solar, Ba, solar plex, Ba, the submerged consciousness of a civilization. That's just breaking some things down like that. I like doing that. I like taking language and messing around with the different linguistic definitions and phonology and morphology and stuff like that. So here we have the book of they say heavenly cow or the celestial cow. It's written on these walls. I think there's a papyrus. If not, there might be on the walls. I'll look it up. But it tells a story. A tale begins after Ra, Ra. Ra had created the world and was king of the gods and humanity. Prior to the beginning of the story, an audience would have been acquainted with the creation myth in which Ra, in his form of Atum, Ra, in the form of Atum. See, Ra has many different forms. Ra, the sun, solar, has Atum, when it rises, Atum from the primordial voidness. It rises, right? And then it gets to the zenith, which is Atun. And then as it starts setting, because sunset, solar setting, it becomes Amun, the hidden. Amun Ra, the hidden one. So Ra, in the form of a tomb, stood on the primordial mound, which is the voidness, void, in the presence of the god Noon. Okay? Noon, Anun Ra. Noon, Anun Ra. So you have Anun Ra, the primordial voidness in that blackness, rising to become Antum Re, rising to the zenith, becoming Antum Re, and then setting at Amum Re. But back into the primordial voidness, where all the possibilities of all those frequency existings is back in the Anum Re. That's Egyptian science, you know what I'm saying? That's Egyptian AO. And here you have the carving on the walls with some hieroglyphics, which is known as the priestly writing. Priestly writing, the nature, the words of the Natharu, the Natirus, the overseers, judges, the one that sit up high, okay, in the high seats. And so this is the writing that they use to educate all the different tribes that migrate, that form that big marketplace, migrated into these cities and form a big marketplace, which they call Hamet. And then you see that I believe that might be what was that? Antanton. Anton. That might be Anton and Nefertiti. Beautiful Titi. Nefertiti. And holding the child, right? And you see the sun disk, of course, with the serpent that has a significance. Remember that the dynastic tides, I call them, right? The people that came from South Africa in that region, Eastern, Southern Africa, and travel all the way up the Nile, actually, the story is they started digging up and became the Nile River. They were digging that out. But these beings, saw nature around them and equated that character, and it became their communication. You know what I'm saying? They even mimic the sounds of the dolphins. Different animals, right? Or sea creatures that they were in communication with. Like the San people and the Twa people, in the waters, and the dolphins with the click language, dolphins speaking vowels and clicks. They started mimicking that, you know. And as they mimicked that and saw also the other animals around them. But I real quickly, let me just show you right here on the right-hand side of the picture. You see those two items that Ankh Nuntan is holding up? Those are batteries. It just looks like batteries. This is powering. This is how they harness the sun power and put them into batteries. They found batteries in Iraq that look something like this. The Sumerian battery. So, and then at the bottom you see them having remnants for the sun. Well, rah! Look at that. Resembles the sun. These lions, and it roars, rah! And it's powerful. It's powerful. It's kingly. It sits up on the mountain and looks down in the cliff. It looks down at its territory. It sits up high on the hill. You know what I'm saying? It looks like the sun with the mane coming out of the hair like that. And it goes raw. You know what I'm saying? And you can also see that, consistent with the previous analysis, the researchers find that the most likely origin of the lions is Eastern and Southern Africa. Previous research based only on existing population of today suggested that this occurred at least 74,000 years ago, and perhaps as long as 500,000 years ago. So here, you know, in Southern Eastern Africa, these are the carvings, and there's some more more carvings. I just picked these three, but I'm gonna find some more added to my file and then pull it up and may do a better, you know, not a better, but a more expansive type of presentation. That when it came into Tarseti, and this is pre-dynastic all the way into the Kemet civilization, and that these deities or this revenant for the lioness, very important, you know, that stood there with the lion. You know, look at the braid and the hair. You know what I'm saying? So the culture, this African culture for South, Eastern, Southern Africa, Africa, they have reverence for the sun. They were represented. That was like their logo, if you may say. Their logo, their whole civilization. It's like the civilizations we know today in European, a lot of the logo they represented was the phoenix bird first, and then it became the eagle, right? They use that as their emblem. Well, there was a tribe in Eastern Southern Africa that it was a lion, you know, and that's when it spread up the Nile River, the Ra, the primordial egg, hatched out a primordial egg, and the Ra, you know. We can go deep into that. That's going deep into physics. But then the Assyrians didn't have that same reverence, as you can see, neither even the Romans. They saw it as a threat. As a threat. They hunted them, they used them from skins. They did a lot of, and gladiators fought them as to prove that they had power over dominion over that animal kingdom. So it's when the Assyrians came in, this, you know, especially the Assyrians and the Sumerian civilization, you know, that birthed themselves out of the they call the Babylonians. They didn't have that reverence for the lion, or the culture wasn't it got to a point where it was no longer have reverence for the sun. They would say Shamash, Samas. It depends on what language you're speaking of. But Shamash, they saw it as a threat, saying this culture. So a lot of them came into the Nile and then married in and replaced the original pre-dynastic tribes. Most of the tribes travel into Kemet. So Kemet, or they traveled up the Nile and under cities like Napata, cities like Moroe, Napata, and there was other cities, Kurun, something like that. So a lot of these cities up that Nile, when they traveled, they mixed in. The Assyrians were there since the Babylonians came in and mixed in with those dynastic, the inhabitants that came from what you would call Nubians. The further up, they went to the Delta, because the Delta was the gateway, was a path that the Sumerians, or those tribes coming from the Ivri tribe, the Ibrahim tribes coming from Chaldea and Ur, all these tribes, Phyical, the Hyksos, all these tribes came in and was constantly coming in, and that was their entering in through there. The Indonesian, however, enter into what you call Masumbike, the horns of Africa, where Masumbike is at and stuff like that. So you had tribes coming in from Yemen, southern Saudi Arabia, and coming into Africa, saying, by way of Ethiopia, Masumbike, that really eastern horn, what they call the Horn of Africa. So you have many of these different tribes, who actually depends, because you have the Indus Valley, the Indonesians, part of India, Hindus coming in, right? And mixing in and becoming these different tribes, Sabaean tribes, tribe of Sheba, and stuff like that, Watutsi, and many other different tribes. The Watutsi, like Hindi, a mixture of Hindi and Twa. Because remember, these Twa people traveled up and, they were considered interesting to the Sumerians, and the Sumerians was about that life. So when you talk about India, the Mahabharata, and Veda, and you speak about that, and you see the name Rama, again, Ra, right? Phonetically, Rama, Ramesses, and this phonetically, these syllables also mean something. It's interesting. You could follow in linguistics. You could follow the train of how it birthed itself and the evolution of language. So Rama's father is King Dasaratha, a prince of the solar race. And his mother is Queen Kausalya. Rama was born at the end. So now, this is the point I wanted to make. A prince of the solar race. Now, this was a race that was pre-India. This race, the solar race, Rama. You know what I'm saying? We receive his name Rama, the solar race. And they say Rama was born in the Trita Yuga, but if you study that different Yuga, and you get to see the time system. So we're talking pre-Trita Yuga. And he was born specifically as a bidding for the gods to deal with the fearsome multi-headed demon Ravana. Now, this is interesting. I'm going to do a podcast about the demon Ravana, the man of many faces. I'm looking in many directions and many faces. Interesting how This has a lot of, what you call underlying meanings and discussions, bro. For real. And you see here in India, where the had that reverence, those tribes that actually migrated in Indonesia and went into the Nile, into Africa. But if you see here that they also have evidence for the lion, the Indian lion. In India, they have lions. Remember this migration. Lions came from eastern South Africa up. And most of those lands, if you study geography and the continent and the plate continental and the drifting of it and the way the land moved and what happened, well, you get a totally different picture. I'm gonna bring some interesting maps and guide let you see that. On my next one. Then one of the key notes that I want to touch upon later on is how ancient solar. So how did ancient civilization harness that sun's energy? And you can see evidence of this. Solar energy is often seen as a futuristic technology. But what people often overlook is that it is also the technology of the past, pre-dynastic technology. I'm going to touch upon that. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to touch upon it. Okay? So yeah, I'm going to